Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I'm Craig Fahle. Thank you very much for being with us again this week. As usual, Nancy Derringer is here occupying the coveted bimbo chair, as she likes to call it. Allan Lengel is here. Thank you very much for being here, sir. And we have a special guest this week.
Yay.
Noted defense attorney Steve Fishman is here with me. And it's great to have you here, sir, because I'm surprised your phone hasn't rung from somebody in Washington at this point who might need an attorney pretty darn soon.
Yeah, he'd be wasting his time calling me.
Well, okay. Is anything going on this week?
Oh, I don't know. It's been a pretty slow news week.
You know, we're dealing with an impeachment. That's actually happening. We're actually seeing an impeachment process begin here.
The inquiry toward an impeachment. But yes, I get it.
I think there is some legitimate reasons
to
potentially do this.
Right.
Earlier in the week, the Trump administration, in thinking this was going to be good for them, decided to release this. And it's not a transcript.
No.
It's not a full transcript of this 30-minute phone call between he and the new Ukrainian president, thinking that this was going to be good for their cause, when indeed what it does show is that he's basically strong-arming them to investigate a political rival,
right?
Which I'm pretty sure is against the law.
I believe it is. It's foreign election interference.
Exactly. And this was the day after the Mueller hearing.
Yeah.
The one day after the Mueller hearing, when Mueller said, this is a violation of the law if this kind of stuff takes place. He goes ahead and does it. This whistleblower finds out about it, and they released it thinking it was going to be good for them. And I'm going to ask the attorney here. If he was your client, what would you advise Donald Trump to do right now?
If he were it'd be impossible for a guy like him to be my client, because clients are required. I mean, putting aside the fact that he's a career criminal, clients are required to listen to the advice of their lawyers. And if he's proven anything, he doesn't listen to anybody other than what he sees on Fox News and what runs around in his brain. And I don't know how any lawyer, other than a lunatic like Rudy Giuliani, who all you have to do is watch him and you see he's a lunatic, it'd be impossible for any real lawyer to represent him. There's a reason why a guy like John Dowd, who, whatever anybody thinks of his politics, is a great lawyer, had to cut ties with him, because you can't, control's a little too strong a word, but you hope. If I go to get my tires replaced, I don't tell the guy how to replace the tires. You know what I mean? I go to professional, he does it. It's the same thing here, but this guy doesn't listen.
No, well, he doesn't listen. But now, when you read the transcript, and I read it, I was looking at this saying, this is pretty bad. This is going to exonerate them in some capacity.
I think he's delusional. Yeah. I think he thinks that he can fool everybody, even though it's right there in black and white.
I think it's a little more than that, in all honesty. When I say a career criminal, there's no doubt if you look at his career, he could have gone to prison just for Trump University, if nothing else. There have been people sent off to prison in the Eastern District of Michigan for cons just like that. But what people don't understand, this is the normal brain, okay? This is the criminal mind. And people are trying to analyze Donald Trump's way of doing things as if he had the normal brain. He has a criminal brain. And so therefore you have to, you don't really follow him if you're a normal person, because he doesn't think like a normal person. He thinks like the normal criminal thinks, which is, I can con people out of anything. I can do whatever I want to do. I can spin things the way I want. And more importantly, he actually looks at things that all the rest of us think are wrong, and he thinks they're fine. For instance, some of his, what Lengel and I would call anti-Semitic tropes that he uses about the Jews, and he actually thinks, A, they're accurate, and B, the Jews should be proud of the fact that they're great with numbers and that their loyalty is to Israel rather than to the country in which they live. I mean, this is how the guy thinks, and until people understand that, they're going to all wind up scratching their heads. They haven't been around enough career criminals, people who have the criminal brain rather than the normal brain. And that's the simplest way to understand this guy is to think like that.
But he does. I mean, if you watch him in the rallies, I mean, he has a fan base, and whatever he says goes, and people are totally dismissive. He's learned with fake news. The New York Times comes out with something in the Washington Post. His fan base is automatically dismissive regardless of the facts. They say, fake news. Oh, it's the Washington Post, the fake news, the fake CNN. And he's been successful at that. He doesn't realize that beyond his fan base, nobody believes them.
But he's going to have a much more difficult time. You only mentioned the summary of the transcript.
Yeah.
The summary of the transcript, to me, what was important about that was the whistleblower. And I don't know how many people read the 9-page complaint, but this is a complaint that's done by somebody who knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
saying he because they seem to say it's a male, okay? And what he summarizes in there, and keep in mind, most of what he's got in there is stuff he heard from other people, and compare what he said the phone conversation was to what the transcript shows.
Well,
it's almost identical.
It is.
Well, somebody said to me the other day, they said, well, since when is hearsay evidence? I said, well, when that hearsay is incredibly accurate as to what actually was in that.
No,
was in that
it's
thing.
more than that. You got to
I
remember.
said, he's got good sources.
You got to remember, though, when statements that come out of the defendant's mouth, which Trump hopefully will one day be a defendant, those are admissions. That's not hearsay. If it's a statement he made and you have a transcript that says he made it, that's an admission. It doesn't qualify as hearsay.
And the weird thing about this, too, is, Nancy, is that he's now dragged into this thing the vice president, the attorney general.
Yeah, if I'm
and
going,
Rudy
if
Giuliani.
I'm going, that white-haired schmuck's going too,
Well,
man.
that's
You know?
exactly it.
Right.
So now
He's
I mean,
not going to get the presidency. Sorry.
And Mike Pompeo is now involved because Giuliani said the State Department instructed him to go talk to the Ukrainian president.
Right.
And if they actually did that, first of all, I can't imagine Pompeo doing that because it looks like the State
Pompeo
Department
is
people
not-
went to go control the damage that Giuliani had done.
Pompeo is not the sharpest knife in the drawer either, though.
None
I
of
mean,
these
you know,
guys
Yeah,
are,
even
but
but
now
that.
loyal.
so how can anybody?
He was number one in his class at West Point, by the way. So he's
Was he?
Pompeo was?
Oh, yeah.
All right. I'll give him that.
I don't know, but
Yes, I
Okay.
want a retraction.
Okay.
I
Fake
disagree,
news.
Craig. I
Trash.
disagree with your phrasing. You said he dragged these other people into it. That's bullshit. He didn't drag anybody into it. These guys dragged themselves into it by attaching themselves to him and by
Right.
continuing to work with him. And a guy like Giuliani, keep in mind, and we see it here in Detroit, lawyers who are over the hill, lawyers who are getting ready to retire, they get antsy. They want to be back in the public eye. Here's Rudy Giuliani, used to be America's mayor, and now he's just America's putz. And what does he do? He attaches himself to this guy. Why? So he can be on TV. So he can talk nonsense with Chris
Right.
Cuomo. So he can
Nonsense.
talk nonsense even when he's on his own TV station, Fox News.
Have you seen some of the interviews with him in the last couple of days?
I saw the one
It's
with-
alarming. It
just-
is really alarming.
I don't watch TV, but I see it on my computer. I saw him
Yeah.
and Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo, I guarantee you, if somehow you could have had a mental thing into his mind, he's thinking, I am talking to a lunatic.
yeah. Well,
I'm not even talking to a normal person, let
was-
alone a guy with a law degree.
he
was
seems
a-
to be incriminating himself.
Of course
constantly.
he is. Of course he is.
I love watching
And
that whole
everybody else.
little New York circle all together, the Comos and Giuliani, and they're all, going back and forth.
The fact that Trump actually mentioned Bill Barr and said to the Ukrainian president, talk to Bill Barr, does he not have to recuse himself from this for anything, any sort of oversight over anything here? I mean, it seems to me that
I think if Bill Barr actually did not do anything, but Bill Barr is clearly the president's lawyer. He's not the attorney general. He's not the people's lawyer. He's the president's lawyer here.
Isn't it weird that someday we're going to look back on the era of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General and go, a man with integrity?
It's the good old days.
It is.
It's hard to
truly
believe. It really is.
It really is.
I don't know what's gonna come of this, but my favorite part was apparently after Nancy Pelosi on Tuesday announced that she was going to open a formal impeachment inquiry. He called her up and said,
72
hey, isn't there
hours.
some sort of deal
He
we
did,
could work
absolutely.
out? One kind of deal, and she said, well, no, you guys can stop breaking the law, and that was her
Actually,
response.
I think the conversation was before, at least what I read in either the Post or the Times. He had this conversation that he instigated because, of course, again, being a career criminal, it's just the fact that you're caught with your drawers around your ankles doesn't mean you can't try to make a deal. And I believe what the writer of the report said, or the writer of the article, I think he probably thought when he hung up, we've got a deal, because he's been able to bogart people. They don't say bogart anymore, but the people who are my age that went to Mumford will know what I mean. He's been able to do this kind of stuff his entire career. He hasn't gone to prison where he belongs. He managed to, who knows how much money he actually has, but he's not bankrupt as he should be after his 4 or 5 bankruptcies. And he probably actually believed that he, by his force of personality, the same way he would convince the Korean leader, and the same way he would convince the Ayatollah if he gets a chance to talk to him. I mean, he just lives in a fantasy world because he has the criminal mind. I'm telling you.
Well,
And a lot of
But he
enablers.
succeeded. Look up to this point.
That's
I
right.
mean, he's stayed out of jail. He's remained solvent in some form. And he's gotten this far. He's in his 70s and he's gotten this far. So
He's not
The good
gonna
news
change.
is he's much more solvent because he violates the emoluments clause every day.
Yeah.
He's become becoming more and more solvent.
Well, they
as
did
time
just
goes
announce
on.
that they got approval to build 500 houses on that Scottish golf course property that they
Right.
bought, and that was just announced yesterday. And the funny thing is, Fox News was sitting there going, "No, the Trump sons aren't doing any overseas real estate deals anymore." And then Eric Trump the next day tweets out, "Hey, we just completed this deal."
Well,
And like.
Nobody ever accused him of being a constitutional genius. That's for sure.
Well, but here's the funny thing that I wanted to get to this morning, because all this is going around. If you're President Trump, right, you'd think you'd be consumed with how you're going to deal with this situation. Start working on a defense strategy. Start working on, okay, how you're going to message this, right? Instead, he goes on Twitter this morning. Here's what he puts out. To show you how dishonest the lamestream media is, I use the word little, spelled Liddle, with an apostrophe at the end. Little, not little, without the apostrophe. Same spelling with the D's. In describing corrupt Congressman Little Adam Schiff. Low ratings at CNN purposely took the hyphen out and said I spelled the word little wrong, which he spells correctly this time, Little. A small but never-ending situation with CNN. First of all,
What does that mean?
An apostrophe is not a hyphen.
I know, but that's bonkers. It doesn't make any
is-
sense.
it is
on
absolutely
any
bonkers.
level.
And
even if you look at it through the criminal mind,
But-
it doesn't make any sense.
Agreed.
I mean, little Liddle. You don't put an apostrophe at the end of that. If you're trying to make it sound like Widow Adam Schiff or something like that,
Well, maybe he
right?
is-
Or Lil Abner, that'd be L apostrophe IL or LI apostrophe L, one of the two.
It's L apostrophe.
But there ain't no
whatever.
hyphen
Yeah,
in there.
Yeah, there's no
There's
hyphen.
Well, you know
hyphen.
what? He
But
has-
this is what he was worried about this morning. That.
He's revamping what the presidency is, what our expectations of a president
Absolutely.
is, and now he is revamping the English language.
This is
He's deciding
right.
how we should spell things. He's
This
he's
is the-
declaring little as Liddle.
this is the true malevolence of this administration. This is going to take years to rinse this crap out of our hair. I am astonished at people that I know who are educated and smart and have dealt with the media and, should know better, who are now buying this line that reporters just make stuff up. It's like, oh, let's invent a source, and we're going to call
Climate
them.
change.
Yeah,
for instance.
who
who would believe 95% of the scientists in the world?
Yeah,
Why
let's
would you-
go
who would
after
believe
Trump
them?
and let's go make up some crap about him. It's
Right.
like that doesn't happen. But we're going to have to be dealing with this fallout
well,
for
it's
this
curious,
forever.
like,
and
you
the
know-
next guy who comes along who's got more on the ball than Trump,
Absolutely.
that's going to be
Although, look,
Armageddon.
this hearing is going to be incredibly important. Obviously, this impeachment process, the witnesses they call, the way they ask them. We transfer to Schiff here because they had the hearing yesterday with the actor and director of national intelligence, and Adam Schiff sort of
Blew it.
I think he screwed up.
Blew it. So here's the story. Anytime you watch any of these things, I can never stand to get through more than 5 or 8 minutes. What you see are Congress people who are either reading from something that somebody else prepared for them or at the same time trying to project themselves as whatever it is they want to project themselves. The problem is what they need and what we saw in the Lewandowski hearing, when they finally got to Mr. Burke, who's a criminal lawyer, he destroyed Lewandowski in 30 minutes. What you need are real lawyers questioning him. You need a real lawyer, for instance, who would have looked at our acting director of national intelligence and saw him for what he is. He's a patriot, a lifetime servant of the country, starting with his days as a Navy SEAL, going right up to this point, and who was put in an impossible position by the President of the United States, the Office of Legal Counsel, and the Attorney General of the United States. And all Schiff had to do was look up from his papers and watch him. Because I was watching him on my computer. And you would begin by saying, sir, I want to begin by complimenting you on a lifetime of service to this country. It must have been something for you to go as a child, as a kid, to the Navy and become a SEAL. And it would have taken 30 seconds.
Well, and you could have phrased it this way, too. You could have said, hey, you had no really good choices here. You had to go
course.
to White House counsel.
No, but what I'm
you
saying,
had to go to the
Craig-
Attorney General. These are the people that you're looking
But
at.
what
How
I'm
do you deal
saying
with
is
that?
you start out
Yeah.
with establishing a rapport with the witness. What you learn as a lawyer is this person trying to hurt my client or help? And all I saw was a guy who was
He's a mensch.
Toss him some softballs, and he's going to hit every single one of them out of the park. Those kinds of questions that you're talking
I think
about.
McGuire actually did do a couple of important things yesterday when he said, look, the Inspector General is above reproach. I trust his judgment. I've known him for a long time. He's a good person. And I believe the whistleblower was acting honorably. That's really important because that undercuts Trump's message that this guy's some partisan hack.
Absolutely.
That was really important. So McGuire, for his part, knowing he was going to be grilled because people are going to ask questions about why'd you go to the White House counsel before you sent it to us, he had no good options with this stuff. I mean, where do you turn?
Right.
Where do you turn?
I think you could have asked him stuff. Again, you have to have a real lawyer. You can't have only 5 minutes. You need 15 minutes or 20 minutes. They should cede their time to someone who knows how to ask questions, who would have started, like I said, and then would go from there to say, and you knew when you came to work for this administration that it was problematic because there was an article in the Post quoting friends of his, other military people.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you decided to do it, sir, because you believe in serving this country. And he would have said, absolutely. And then when you got in there, then you can go to that part. And this was not any easy assignment, was it? Because it's not every day, is it, that the President of the United States pokes his nose in to intelligence things that have to do with his misconduct, right? And he'd have gone right. That's how you question him. You don't have to have a speech from him. You make the little speech, and then you ask him to agree. And he would have done it because that's what he was there for. I mean,
You need to leave a card behind because if I'm going to do some crimes, I want your card in my.
It's funny. I got a cartoon this morning from a Republican friend, and it's a cartoon of it's a Democrat is taking a knife and basically committing hara-kiri while he's trying, Trump standing behind him, and the Democrat is bleeding. But I got to tell you, and I had a friend last night who was saying, I think this is going to backfire on the Democrats, and I don't believe that's going to be the case. I think the case is going to be whether the American people want to make a determination whether they want an honest president, and if they have some standards for the president. If they say, no, this is terrible, shame on you Democrats for challenging the man we elected, then this is where our country's at, and we have to assess that, and it's dangerous where we're at right now.
Windsor is right across the river, and I'm sure there's lots of real estate for sale over there. And the worst thing their prime minister did was, he wore some blackface, which is, of course, very offensive. But, it's not the same, so...
Well,
guys, I gotta go.
I know Nancy's got to leave us because she is going to see Kanye West.
Exactly.
And she's got to be there in a couple of minutes, so we're going to let her go. But
I'm going
the rest
to
of us
see
will
Kim
continue
Kardashian
on
tonight. So, so what?
Same difference.
But we shall continue on. I'm going to remind folks, this is the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I'm Craig. Steve Fishman is here with us. Allan Lengel sticking around as well. All right, let's shift a little bit because it's always shocking to me. We had this sort of climate awareness day around the globe the other day. You mentioned climate change just a little bit ago. And there's this 16-year-old girl from Scandinavia named Greta Thunberg. And she was giving this passionate speech about how the world is, she's very passionate about these things. The threat that some of these people feel from this 16-year-old girl and the crap that she has been getting from people for talking about her true feelings and worrying about this kind of stuff is remarkable. How quick people are willing to tear down a 16-year-old girl who has Asperger's syndrome and just try to destroy her and make it seem like she's some sort of a plant or an actress or some sort of nonsense like this. Why are guys so threatened by somebody like that? Have you been paying attention to what's been happening to her?
Yeah.
Why do I think it is?
Yeah.
I think that it's the same thing. You could make the same argument about the Parkland kids that are talking about guns and automatic weapons and things of that nature. I think that there are a lot of people, grown adults who are supposed to be adults, particularly as they get older, more in Lengel and I's age group, they don't want to be told anything about anything. They decide something is so, they're going to not let some little punk kid tell them what's the right thing to do. What I will say also, though, is I cannot imagine an issue that will generate more voting out of the young people, which is, of course, what the Democrats need, than this. And why they want to sit and argue over how many angels can dance on the head of the pin when all of them should be getting up, Green New Deal, no Green New Deal, whatever. It's a very simple argument, and Jennifer Rubin made it beautifully in the Washington Post the other day, as to why this is the issue of the day for people 30 and under. My kids, for instance, you think they don't recognize that it's going to be 93 degrees in Chattanooga on Tuesday?
Yeah.
And this is the number one issue for them. So this young girl, she's just a kid, right?
Yep.
She gets up in front of the United Nations and basically tells them they're all full of crap. They haven't done anything, and they're abandoning the youth to whatever comes. That's the truth. The older people don't want to hear that.
But I think also they don't want to deal. They don't want to learn about it. They don't want to deal with it, and it just gets down to liberal, conservative. And so when people dehumanize the other side, they see this girl who is articulating the liberal thing, and they try to dehumanize her.
Well, and she's a foreigner too, which
a foreigner, right?
Why am I listening to some foreign kid?
Yeah, we hate immigrants, even though Trump, his first and third wife are immigrants. which is always, we brought this up before. It's interesting that he basically demonizes immigrants. He's married to an immigrant, and she has a campaign against bullies, and she's married to a bully.
Again, fun household, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. We may have a government shutdown coming in Lansing. We'll see. It seems that the Republicans have pretty successfully painted the governor into a corner here on this budget. She doesn't have a lot of options. She's got line item power that she might be able to do, but they came up with $400 million in additional funding for the roads, short-term money that's being taken from other priorities. So they can say, hey, we're fixing the damn roads without the governor's help. Of course, it's far short of what we likely need. And people I'm talking to in Lansing suggest that this may be what they do on roads, that they're not necessarily going to go back to the table to come up with a big, longer-term road funding plan. They're going to say, well, we did our part, and then just try to pin this on the governor to basically make her lose the next election. A shutdown would not be good for the governor, but, I mean, who are people going to blame on this one, you think? Do they see the chicanery that's going on here?
That's a good question.
It's tough to understand budgets. I mean,
right. It's tough to see the politics. I mean, it's just sort of people are just, it seems like Gretchen Whitmer has had a fairly decent relationship with the legislature, except for on the budget issue. And to me,
which is the only issue at the moment.
But it goes back to when Snyder did not want, as a Republican, he did not want to take a stance and do what had to be done. The legislature didn't want to take a stance. The Republican-controlled legislature never wants to be tagged with raising taxes, and so what we have is that we put it before the voters, which was just a lame way to do it, and it was a bad proposal, and it didn't pass. And so here we are still grappling with that. It seems like there's got to be some way to raise money and address the issue, and instead we're back. We've got a budget that's all.
Well, you've got a bunch of legislators that just don't have the guts to vote on a tough issue. They haven't. They've been passing stuff off to voters for a long time. They put everything on the ballot instead of actually doing their damn jobs, and it's been going on really since the inception of term limits. I don't think the relationships exist up there anymore the way that they used to. Right. You don't have anybody that trusts each other. It's partisan rancor, and again, taxes do pay for things, and people need to understand that.
Yeah.
I think that what Allan was saying though is really true. You have two competing instincts that 95% of people will say. Number one, 95% of the people say we should fix the damn roads. On the other hand, maybe not 95%, but a large percentage, particularly of Republicans, say I'm not paying another penny in taxes. You can't get anywhere if that's going to be the way it is. And I always have thought term limits was a terrible idea. Right. And now, in our state legislature, is it even a question anymore?
No.
That it's a terrible idea?
Well, it should be.
Who runs the place is the people, the lobbyists who are there all the time, right?
Yep.
And guys come in, they're there for 2 years, 4 years, that's it.
There's no historical memory there. What should have been the upside is that lawmakers wouldn't care and say, I'm going to vote for this for a tax increase because who cares? I'm term limited. But some of them are using the state legislature as sort of a launching pad for better political careers, and they don't want to be tagged with that. So.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with that. We've got a couple of days left before we figure this out, and I have a feeling we'll be hearing something from the governor on this pretty soon, but we'll see. Speaking of Democrats and Republicans, remember, Republicans did everything in their power to hang on to control in Oakland County as long as they possibly could. They, of course, lost that recently. The Democrats basically turned the tables on the Republicans for the first time in a long time there.
Right.
And now you've got $15 minimum wage for workers in the county that is being put in place by the new county executive, which, this is all the nefarious plot, of course, for the Democrats to destroy Oakland County. That's what Brooks used to say.
Oakland County's always had a very healthy budget.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, what's that really going to? We're talking about workers. What is that going to ding? How much is that going to ding the budget there? Really,
not a lot, but it sends a message, doesn't it, about your priorities and what you think is important.
Well, it's about time, wouldn't we say? It's
about time. An actual living wage is kind of a big deal,
especially when people are working for the government and they're supposedly doing the people's work. Right. I mean, hopefully that's what they're doing.
Well,
one would think so.
That's what all public service.
Really, when you think about it, though, the Oakland County, when you look at the election results, forget about Brooks because Brooks, stayed and was in control. But Oakland County, I live in Southfield, and I don't know what the ballot would show at the end of any given election, but it's 80% Democrats.
Oh, yeah.
Pontiac, 80% Democrats. Even anywhere other than the really, really wealthy areas of Oakland County, they're voting for Democrats because they know it's pretty obvious the Republicans don't give a shit about the regular guy. You know, they care about the ones who are supporting them. And I think it's amazing it's been this long before the Democrats were able to take over the leadership positions. It's a tribute to Brooks Patterson's staying power and his ability to keep connected with enough people that that kept him in office all that time.
Right. Well, I think we're seeing places turn blue. I mean, we saw it. I saw when I lived in D.C. We saw it in Northern Virginia. Virginia was such a red state, and then Northern Virginia, Alexandria, Arlington, Roslyn, all became more and more Democratic, and suddenly now Virginia's a blue state. And it'll be interesting to see some of the other states. I don't know if Texas is going to get there. I mean, with Beto O'Rourke, who knows? Maybe he'll run for. I don't know if there's a Senate seat open.
There is. Not open. Cornyn's up for election.
Okay, so I mean, he could jump into the race, and I don't see Beto O'Rourke lasting very long in this presidential race. But,
no. I think we're going to see the thinning of the herd very soon.
It's not a bad parallel to be campaigning for president, and then you take it down a notch and you go for Senate, and you've had that higher exposure on a national level. So
all right. So we've only got a couple minutes left, guys, and I do want to talk a little bit of sports. Tigers had their last home game yesterday.
Yay.
This has just been an awful season for them. They didn't set any records for futility. They were close. They were close, but they got the first pick in the draft, which in baseball is always a crapshoot. It's never a guarantee.
You're not
like it is in
LeBron
basketball.
James.
Exactly. It doesn't exist. But
right.
So what do we make of this team? They're not going to be good next year either, and their attendance was the worst they've had in 16 years at Comerica Park.
I will tell you this, just as a former athlete, okay? Nobody is going to pay money to come see minor league players. And whatever their rationale was for getting rid of Verlander, Porcello, David Price, Scherzer, J.D. Martinez, whatever, they're paying the price for it, and they deserve it. Because prospects, as you just said, I don't know if you guys remember, when they traded for Miguel Cabrera, they gave him Cameron Maben and the pitcher, Andrew Miller.
Yep.
And people were telling me, and people were, we're giving away these two great. And I said, have you ever seen Miguel Cabrera hit a baseball?
Well, I know.
And the guy would go, what do you mean? I said, next time.
Watch a Marlins game sometime.
Just watch, talk to the other, listen to the other players talk about it. This is a Hall of Fame player. I don't care how many prospects you have to give away. It's different in football or basketball because there's not that many guys. Basketball, you give away 4 guys. Now you got to get a starting team together. But you got guys in the minor leagues, or maybe they're going to be good players for a Hall of Famer, and they're paying the price now. They don't want to pay those guys.
Well, one of the I was just looking at the records here in 2003 when we lost 119 games. The very next year we won 72. And so
that's also the year they got Pudge Rodriguez.
Rodriguez came that year.
Yeah, and then you had 71, and then suddenly in 2006 we had 95.
Right.
And so the question is, are we going to be able to turn it around that much in the next year? I'd say highly unlikely.
Impossible.
They have given away.
They've made it pretty clear they're not going to sign anybody. I mean, there's no free agents out there that are going to be coming to this team. They're not going to want to do it. I mean, there's some trades you can make, but they don't have anything to trade.
J.D. Martinez, is he a free agent again, or is that?
I don't think he's coming back here.
Yeah, he's going to Houston or something. They're not going
exactly. He's going to go someplace and play winning baseball for them.
That's why Pudge Rodriguez deserves the. If he wouldn't have done what he did, we never would have got to that point.
No, because then they got Maglio and everybody else.
This is a Hall of Fame player. At that time, his record was enough to be in the Hall of Fame, and he comes to Detroit. That changed everything.
Right.
Well, I will not force you to talk about your beloved Michigan Wolverines because that football game last weekend was pretty awful.
I hate to tell you, we're a basketball school now.
That's what it seems like.
How's the basketball going to be this year?
It'll be all right. Joanna's he'll do a good job. We got, we lost a couple guys, but
all right,
it'll be fine.
We got to wrap up with this. Can the Lions continue the magic? They are 2-0-1. Right now, they are on top of the Central Division for the first time in a long time.
I mean, I talked to Mike O'Hara, who covered
the most jaundiced guy ever from Pershing High, by the way.
Funny guy. He thinks he predicts there'll be a wild card contender there.
But they showed me a little something. I mean, they're trying to find ways to lose these games, but they found a way
did
to
you
pull
watch
them
the
out.
game last night with Philly and
I
Green
did. That's
Bay?
why the Packers lost. That's why the Lions are in first place.
Interception right at near the goal
but
line.
nobody's calling for Aaron Rodgers to be shipped out of town.
No,
he just blew a game. He blew a game at the MLS.
The pass was right in the breadbasket where it should have been. I don't know if the guy deflected or whatever, but passed.
Yeah,
Suddenly went up.
nobody's calling for Rodgers to be.
Yeah, he's
Right.
still a skilled guy. But look, Matt Stafford is doing a very good job.
Decent
this year.
job thus far, but they got the Chiefs this weekend. That's going to be
That'll
a
be
tough
a good
one.
test.
Patrick
It'll be a good
Mahomes.
test. They're playing at home, which will help.
Pretty good team.
But if they win that game, would you dare to believe in the Lions?
Every time you believe in them, you were watching the Philly game and they almost blew that.
I was 8 years old when they last won the championship. We had to drive away from the city to watch it on Channel 6. That's how unpopular pro football was. And it's been now, 62 years, right?
Yeah.
And no, I would say even if they blow the Chiefs out 35-0, I wouldn't sit there based on what I've experienced and say, oh, this is the Lions' year. I will say this, though. The kind of games that they've humbled their way into victory, those are the ones they always blow.
Yes.
So maybe the Lord has finally said, these long-suffering fans in Detroit for 62 years, I'm going to let the brakes go the Lions' way one time.
Well, and last thing here, one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time, the Red Wings played the St. Louis Blues last night in a preseason game up in Calumet, Michigan, in front of like a couple hundred fans. Calumet, which is up in the Keweenaw Peninsula, won a national contest to have a pro hockey game. And so the teams flew up to, I think Houghton is where they could fly into, drove up to Calumet, and the whole town apparently was just buzzing over this thing, and they all showed up to watch this game. And the
that's
players,
very cool.
it was like that Mystery Alaska movie when the Rangers came, It was very much like that, and I just thought that was a really cool thing for the NHL to do.
Yeah.
That's a
and
good
like
idea.
Calumet,
It's like Paul McCartney going back to Liverpool with James Corden.
That's exactly right. But anyway, I thought that was a cool thing. Well, gentlemen, we got to wrap it up. I certainly appreciate you being here, Steve. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve Fishman, of course, our guest today. Allan Lengel, thank you. Nancy Derringer, who's off seeing Kanye, I believe.
Kanye
She's
West.
going to have fun.
Yeah.
I'm Craig Fahle. Michael Lucido engineered our broadcast today. We always appreciate his help, and we appreciate you all watching. Thank you, and listening. Check in anytime. Remember, thecraigfahleyshow@gmail.com. Get in touch. Tell us what you like, what you don't. I love hearing all of it. So have a great weekend, everybody.
And drive home safely.
There we go. Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state.